everybody, I'm Will and I'm an amateur baker. As you guys can see from my apron, I'm originally from Virginia, but in July of 2017, my husband Brady and I
Hello.
decided to move from Virginia to Oregon for his job opportunity. In that time, I had to quit my job with the federal government and decided I'd start doing something I was actually really passionate about, which happened to be baking. So originally I started out with a regular old baking blog, but after a bunch of requests from people, I decided to start making some videos. So that's where we are today, and we are going to call it Adventure in the Baking. What I'd like to do is try to share some of my favorite recipes with you guys and try some new ones out along the way. So right now, what we're gonna do is my first recipe, my most requested recipe, especially from Brady, chocolate chip cookies. So my chocolate chip cookies are a little bit different than what you're probably used to. The texture is just perfect, and I'm able to achieve that by using a different type of flour, but we'll get back to that later. All right guys, so here's what you're gonna need for your recipe. Let's start off with 2 1/4 cups of bread flour. Yeah, you heard me, bread flour. We need a teaspoon of baking soda. We need a teaspoon of salt. And we're gonna have 3/4 cup of granulated white sugar. 3/4 cup of brown sugar. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. 2 eggs. And 2 sticks of butter. We can't forget about the most important ingredient, those chocolate chips. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so good. So now that you got all your ingredients measured out, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is take that flour, go ahead and pour it in a big bowl. Now I want you to take the baking soda and the salt, dump it on in there. And then let's get it all evenly distributed by taking a wire whisk and whisking it all around. We want to do the dries first because we eventually will dump them into the wet ingredients. We don't want them in there just yet because we want to cream all the butter and the sugar together first. So now that we've got the dry ingredients all whisked together, we can set those aside for a minute. The next thing you want to do is take your 2 sticks of butter and drop them in a mixing bowl. Now, you can definitely use a hand mixer if you'd like, but I've had this trusty KitchenAid mixer since I was about 19 years old. Now we're gonna take the sugars, both the brown sugar and the white sugar, get it dropped on in there. And we're going to attach the paddle. And let's get mixing. So while this is mixing, go ahead and take that teaspoon of vanilla and pour it on in. And we're looking to get it all nice and creamed together, which I'll show you what it looks like here in a moment. So now what we're gonna do is add 1 egg at a time in and while it's mixing. So we'll go ahead and crack this baby. Trying not to get any shells in there, of course. All right, there's 1. And let's mix her. So we'll just go ahead and take our spatula and just push the sides down into the middle. It's pretty pliable at this point, so you're not gonna have much issue with this. All right, now that we've got that in there, let's go ahead and add that second egg. All right, again, no shells. All right, let's turn her back on. So once again, go ahead and scrape. Get everything in there. You know, get a little extra on you. I don't know if you're daring enough to try the raw egg, but I am. Pretty good. All right. Now for the fun part. We're gonna turn the mixer on. And we're gonna slowly add the dry ingredients into the wet. You definitely don't want to do this all at once, otherwise you're gonna have a bunch of flour exploding up in your face, and nobody really wants that. All right, so I've added about half in right now. We'll let it mix for a second. All right, let's scrape those bowls again. And now let's go ahead and add the rest of the dry ingredient in. So you're gonna want this setting on the mixer to be pretty low. Again, otherwise you're gonna just have a mess flying at you. It's starting to come together, starting to look more like cookie dough. Liking that. I don't know what's better, baked cookies or the cookie dough. Oh my gosh. Yes. All right, I'll go ahead and turn it off now. Lift it up. And then go ahead and add the chocolate chips in. So I'm just gonna dump these on in. Turn it on low. Now it doesn't take very long for all these to get mixed in, so you don't really have to stress about keeping it on for like a minute or so. I mean, 20 seconds is probably more than enough. And here is that delicious looking cookie dough. So now I'm gonna go ahead and remove that paddle, if I can get it off. There we go. And get this darn cookie dough off of here. Brady stealing cookie dough already. Yeah, make sure you're working with clean hands, trust me. It's, you know, nobody wants to see you sticking your fingers all over this with dirty, dirty hands. I'm gonna pass this paddle off because I know somebody that really wants to lick the paddle. That's good. All right, so now that we've got this cookie dough ready to go, we're gonna wanna go ahead and preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're gonna take this bowl of cookie dough and stick it in the freezer. All right, now that we've got our oven preheated to 375 and we've taken our cookie dough out of the freezer, we can go ahead and roll them and drop them into a cookie pan. So as you've seen here, I have lined this cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper. You could also grease it with some nonstick baking spray or use a silicone baking mat, whatever you prefer. Just make sure you're not putting it on there without some sort of coating on the bottom of it. So now what you want to do is you want to grab a little bit of the cookie dough. You want to get enough, I'd say about a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons. You want it about half the size of a golf ball, really. And then you'll just go ahead and plop them down on the tray. I like to do 4 rows of 3. Go ahead and put that on the middle rack. And then set your timer. All right, now it's finally time to take these cookies out of the oven. So, Go ahead and set them on the range, let them cool for a minute or so before we put them onto our nice cooling rack. Now that they've cooled for a minute or two, we can go ahead and take them and place them on this cooling rack. So now what you can do is go ahead and repeat the same process by dropping another 12 on the baking pan, popping them in for another 10 minutes, and keep going until you've baked all your dough. Or do what I like to do and place it in a Tupperware airtight container and freeze it. Thanks guys so much for watching today. Now it's time for Brady and I to enjoy these cookies with a glass of wine. Cheers. There you go. Do me the honors.
Oh yeah. That's it, dude.
Perfect.